Hi, everyone, and welcome. Sorry for the delayed start, but we are here. Shabbat Shalom. So great seeing everyone that's around and available. I'm going to invite Brenda up here to light the Shabbat candles. It's on page 120 if you want to follow along. I appreciate it. Amen. All right, we're about the Mundi brothers up here to join us, and we're going to move over to page 128 of our prayer books, and they're going to sing for us Hine Matov.
הנה מה טוב ומעניים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומעניים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומעניים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה.
Page 138, and I think the brothers like to recite 1, 2, and 9. Or is it 1, 5, and 9? Okay. 159. Paragraphs 1, 5, and 9. And when we reach paragraph 9, I'd like you all to stand up with us and read the Shabbat bride of our brothers.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור לי דיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורק ומיורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך ניגע. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה וצולה. תוך אמוני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, לפני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, לפני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, לפני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. Shalom Aleichem next, right on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharem, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzikim leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Okay, we're moving on to the Chati Kaddish on page 144. Yit Gedal v'yit Gedash Shemei Rabbah B'elma divrach Riyotei v'yamlik malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'cherechol Beit Yisrael B'gala uv'izman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam Ulam Me'almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yipromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitale V'yithalal Shmei Kedusha Barechu Le'elam Min Kol Berchata V'shirata Tusbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'elman ve'imaru. Amen. We now move to the Barracuda on page 146, and when you arrive there, I invite you to stand with us.
Ya la 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 la, ya la la.
The Ma'ariv Aravim on page 148.
ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חבק הים, תמיד ימלוך, Aleinu le'olam vayed. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'arovim, u'mavir yom, u'mevil laila, u'mavir ben yom u'ben laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, Elkav echayam, Talmudim lo, Aleinu le'olam vayed. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'aravim. Ya la la la, 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 ya la la la. Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la.
You can all join me in the bottom of page 151. I'd love for us to read that bottom paragraph together in the English. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. So for the Shema, we're going to be excited as a community, of course. And then we're going to say Baruch Hashem kind of to ourselves. And then before we move on to the Via Hafta, we're going to have a few moments of silent reflection and meditation. So we're on page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Vaed. One, 5, 4. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meyodecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher nochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinartam levarnecha b'divartam ba'am v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'letecha havaderech u'shofecha u'vkumecha u'kshartam le'yot al yadecha v'hayu totafot b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mizuzo beitecha u'visharecha Lema'an tizkeru v'achitem echol mitzvotai v'tem kiroshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti echem meretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We now move to page 158 for the Micha Mocha.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
162.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובין, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל ואת השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
And we move now to page 164 for the Amidah. When you arrive there, I invite you to stand with us. Adonai sefataytika ufiyadi tehilatecha. Adonai sefataytika ufiyadi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu V'Imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Ha'nora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, V'mei Gdula L'bnei Bneihem, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב ויושיע, משיב הברכה ומרי הגן השם. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מטעמו חלק וגברות, ומדום אליו מלך ממיט ומחיה ומחזיר ישועה ונאמנתה וחייב לכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
We're not going to continue silently until page 180. You may be seated whenever you like. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, v'imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, v'imru amen. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel.
Thanks, fellas. Now I'm going to say some words of Torah. So, us Jews, we have a complicated belief system. Well, I think most Jews can agree we are monotheists. How we access our singular God varies in literally hundreds of ways. Furthermore, Judaism has changed its belief system drastically over the millennia that it has been a religion. This has happened both slowly and quickly. An example of a slow change is modern progressive Judaism as an offshoot of traditional Judaism. Didn't happen all at once, but over the course of 100 years or so, it slowly formed into the Reformed Judaism that we know today. An example of a sudden flashpoint in Judaism, where change happened overnight, is the destruction of the first and second temple. The first one decentralized Judaism away from the temple cult, and the second one decommissioned the entire priesthood institution. Yet we still feel very connected to the first and second temple era of Judaism. Our belief system often incorporates antiquated Judaism. For example, us Jews have an opportunity to pray 3 times a day, or 4 times on Shabbat. This matches the sacrifices that occurred at the temple. A particular belief system that I want to focus on tonight is this term called axis mundi, which is Latin for a cosmic pillar. An axis mundi is a borrowed term from ancient geography, which refers to the belief that the earth turned on these invisible celestial poles. However, in theological terms, an axis mundi is a place where one can be close to God. For example, in this week's Torah portion, the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, is an axis mundi. It's literally the place where God rests, God's pillar of smoke. A modern convention of an axis mundi is at the western wall of the Temple Mount. Many Jews, Reform, Orthodox, and beyond, believe that the western wall has special significance, that the western wall is a little bit closer to Adonai. I personally have had deep personal spiritual experiences at the western wall, and I myself am famously pragmatic about my spirituality. Since it's possible to imagine our western wall as an axis mundi, I want us for a moment to imagine what it was like for Jews 2,500 years ago. So here we go. Like many Israelites at the time, you don't live in Jerusalem. So you have to travel a long way to make a pilgrimage there. You've just arrived. When you get there, you purchase an unblemished ram or sheep, and you also buy some unleavened cakes, and you make your way to the sacrificial altar. There's most likely a long line. While you wait, the sounds of other sacrificial animals can be heard around you. The air is pungent with the smell of old and fresh blood, And in front of you are priests and their helpers butchering animals and chanting blessings. While waiting in this line, you're most likely having the most meaningful spiritual experience in your life. And it's only the beginning, because finally it's your turn and you get to offer up your ram to the priests as a shlamim offering, an offering of well-being. And you tell the priest it's simply a Todah offering, one of thanksgiving, and you hand the priest your unleavened cakes as well. And the priest puts the unleavened cakes to the side with help from the Levite, positions the ram, lifts up his knife and cuts the ram's throat, and with the blood, sprinkles the already stained altar while saying your name for your thanksgiving. And your spiritual experience has just reached its climax. And you get to walk away with the warm glow knowing that your sacrifice was received by God. In fact, it was so special that the priests have to eat the food you offered them by tonight, or it would become profane. And this is how Tzav, our Torah portion this week, instructs us on how to perform a Todah offering, an offering of thanksgiving. So how can modern Jews, or how can modern Jewish sensibilities even compare to the sights, sounds, and smells of a sacrificial experience of our Israelite ancestors? But while our Israelite ancestors had this one powerful spiritual experience at one sacred place and time, that was it. That was, to the large extent, their belief system. They left the altar, their axis mundi, their cosmic pillar, went back home to a space and time that was constantly and consistently profane. And so Judaism has evolved. We now hold a belief system that doesn't require an axis mundi to create a spiritual and sacred space. In fact, in modern Judaism, any moment can have potential spiritual significance. It is no longer compartmentalized to an altar or a sacrifice. I believe Martin Buber expressed this change perfectly in his book, Hasidism and the Modern Man. And he wrote, "In life, as Hasidism understands and proclaims it, there is accordingly no essential distinction between sacred and profane spaces, between sacred and profane time, between sacred and profane actions, between sacred and profane conversations. At each place, in each hour, in each act, in each speech, the holy can blossom forth." Judaism's belief system has evolved so that we no longer need the intense physical experience of an altar sacrifice to find spiritual meaning and connection in our lives. This very moment we are having together right now can be a spiritual moment, but it doesn't have to be a singular spiritual one. Waking up in the morning can be just as sacred. Making coffee or eating breakfast, just as sacred. It's possible. And while the altar represented a fundamental sacred space in our tradition's lore, it also diminished the spiritual significance that can be explored all around us. A cosmic shift in our Jewish belief system. However, as great as that sounds, this shift has been difficult. Even though I would argue that the destruction of the temple advanced Jewish spirituality, it came at great cost to our people. A cost we commemorate every year in a holiday called Tisha B'Av, which is referred to as the 9th of Av. The day it is believed that both temples were destroyed, though in different years. Sometimes a creative belief system comes from a destructive force. I would like to suggest that we are currently in the middle of a flashpoint of change. COVID has been a destructive force in our lives. It has forced us to rethink how we can achieve spiritual moments. For example, can we feel the power of connecting with community while being physically isolated from it? Or can we have powerful worship experiences from watching a screen? The answer is messy. But for more and more people, it's possible thanks to our modern communication technology. And while I personally hate any kind of change, I have to admit that some of the changes we have made to our community have come with curious discoveries. I used to think of a brick and mortar community the same way as an Israelite 2,500 years ago considered the temple. as central to our religion. But now I believe that our community can have meaningful communal and spiritual experiences while not being physically present. The Access Mundi is no longer in our synagogue, but in ourselves. No matter the distance, we can still come together physically and digitally as a community. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, which you can find on page 371. But before we sing it, I'm going to list the members of our community who are in need of healing. And they are Tina Mink, Chris Converse, Jennifer Eskridge, Ian Clift, David Tobias, Kitty Flagel, Lindsay Raber, Micah Purdy, Cheryl Lambriani, Laura Allen, Susan Super, Mary Jo Robinson, Melba Cook, Emmy Webb, Stephen Lamp, Russell Crass, Bill Ross, Alan Friedman, Russ Nog, Ross Rumack, Norma Haas, Ray Ellis, Judy Cantor, Carol Ribbon, Diane Kaplan, Craig Paulus, Philip Kaufman, Nicole Neeson, Jane Anderson, Luis Mayer, Lillian Mayer, Margie Bauman, and Ariel Lamp. If there's someone who you are thinking about who's in need of healing, please feel free to say their names out loud or in your hearts.
Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe berach imotenu mechor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We now move to the Eleni, which you can find on page 587 of your prayer books. Once you arrive there, I'm happy to stand with us. About 91. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Love each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech. May we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo Now turn to the Mourner's Kosh on page 598 of your prayer books. And in your own community, we're thinking about these yard sites this week. Bernard Lee and Alma Saunders. If there's someone who you are thinking of, please feel free to say their names out loud or in your hearts. Zikunom Livracha, may the memory be for a blessing. Yit Kedal, Yit Kedash, Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach hayotev yamlik machute.
B'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayeda chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mebarak le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemeda kudasha barichu. Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma ve'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleni v'akol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'imromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleni v'akol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. Okay, announcement. So tomorrow is Judaism 101 at 9 a.m. on our Zoom room. It's going to be about mysticism. So it's pretty exciting. And actually, Moshe will be teaching at this tomorrow instead of myself. So he's a much better take on it than I do. He's much more learned in that area. So it should be really exciting and fun. And then we'll have a text study at 10:30 on our Zoom room as well after that. And then tomorrow is a canned food drive day with a mobile food bank. So where we volunteer to help pass out canned food at Fairview Rec Center at 12:30. So please join our community for that as well. And then let's think. Religious school is back on Sunday at 9:30 for Hebrew, 10 for regular classes on our Zoom room. And then we have morning minyan every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on our Zoom room as well. Am I forgetting anything? Did I get it all? Looking at the board members. Is that good? Okay, we're good. Got it all. Yes. Okay. Well. No. I think I got it all. Okay. Yeah. Anyways. The other thing I want to talk to you about is masks. So I think starting next week, it's going to be masks optional. And I also would like to start inviting parents who have kids who are 5 and younger to our services as well. They've felt pretty left out because there's no vaccine yet for kids who are 5 and under. And I feel like it's pretty safe. But I would love to hear your thoughts, as I know you'll tell me about those thoughts. So I want maybe in the next 2 weeks or so, I want to open up to that. So that's us kind of slowly opening it up. But that's the idea, is that we invite that demographic because they felt pretty excluded, unfortunately. So okay, but I'm excited for mask optional for next week. Feels a little bit like COVID sort of slipping, leaving a little bit. I don't want to maybe jinx it too much. So. They should say that quieter, I'm sorry, but yes. Well, here we go. All right, closing melodies, gentlemen. Maya Fayon. What page is that on? 128, Maya Fayon.
Maya Fayon. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, y'all. So good to see you here. Shabbat, yes.
Guys, yes, loved it.
That was so
That's a problem.
No, single last.
Yeah.
I love this one.
Yeah.
And we do that with all our songs now.
Yeah.
Work away real fast.
Like a
Yeah, it's like
boy
small
fishing.
balls.
Yeah.
It's like